everyone, and welcome back to Sports Break. I am super excited today to be joined by Margaret McDonnell, the Executive Director of United to Beat Malaria at the UN Foundation. Margaret, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this chat. We've been connected through a mutual friend and just like really excited to hear about what's going on with United to Beat Malaria. So I'd love for you to give listeners real quick a rundown of what that program is and kind of how you got involved with it.
Sure. Yeah. So United to Beat Malaria, we're the world's largest grassroots organization committed to beating malaria. So for those who don't know, malaria is a disease caused by a mosquito bite. It currently kills a child, mostly children under 5 in Africa, every minute, which is crazy. There's been amazing progress over the last, 15, 20 years. But progress it's become more complicated. Progress has started to stall. And so we're at a really critical juncture and are really committed to really trying to rid the world of malaria. And so United to Beat Malaria works to do that through our advocacy work, both here in the US to try to ensure that the US is a strong leader and funder of malaria fighting programs, as well as, raising funds and directly supporting malaria prevention programs that protect the most vulnerable people, which is pregnant women, children under 5, and people who are living in displacement. Essentially, they've either been internally displaced within their country or living as refugees. So we really work to protect the most vulnerable people from malaria, and do that, through providing things like bed nets, as well as other prevention methods, treatment, diagnostics, and the training of community health workers. So, yeah, and we're based at the UN Foundation, which is committed to, a healthier, stronger world for all. So, yeah, that's about us.
Amazing work, very important work. We're going to get into how listeners can get involved and help out, because yeah, truly an amazing mission. And I know that there's been a history of sports intertwining with United to Beat Malaria, which was once called Nothing But Nets. But yeah, can you explain a little bit about the crossover there and why there was a push for that?
Yeah, it's sort of fascinating. So, long story short, back in 2006, I think it was, former Sports Illustrated journalist Rick Riley was caught a documentary. I think it was like a BBC documentary about malaria, and learned that at the time a child was dying every 30 seconds from malaria. And he learned that by at that point it was like $10 per insecticide treated bed net could help protect a family from malaria. And he just thought it was outrageous that such a simple, inexpensive tool was available, but not actually, not able to reach every family. So he actually wrote an article in Sports Illustrated, and back in 2006 about this, and basically called on all sports fans. He said something like, I normally talk to you about basketball nets and, hockey nets and soccer nets, but today I want to talk to you about the power of life-saving bed nets. And within like a month, $1 million had been raised. And, he basically called the UN Foundation and was like, set up a website. I'm going to write this article called Nothing But Nets, obviously drawing off the nothing but net, metaphor from basketball. And yeah, it's exploded. We've been around now for, well, I guess 16 plus years, and we've had tremendous impact. We've helped to protect, over 40 million people from malaria, have raised something like $75 million, and have been really effective at advocating for programs. So because of that founding, it actually helped to inspire partnerships with the NBA, WNBA, Major League Soccer at the time. And we've been really lucky to have some fantastic champions join us, everyone from Steph Curry, who, people have probably heard of, really a fantastic NBA player, who donated 3 bed nets for every 3-point shot he made for, I
Wow.
think, 5 consecutive seasons, which is pretty incredible, to people like Ruth Riley, former WNBA player. And actually, Abby Wambach joined and spoke at a summit we had a number of years ago. So, yeah, we've had a really great sort of history and tradition of engaging sports fans and athletes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Definitely, a worthy cause for someone to get. It's kind of a, a no-brainer. Like, of course, we want to help protect people and children, and that's awesome. It's really cool to see advocacy come out of sports, and to find great partners for that. So, how did you arrive and get to executive directorship? Kind of what's been your trajectory to United to Beat Malaria?
Yeah, well, it's a long story, so I'll try to keep it short because I've never been someone who's had, a clear plan. I just sort of took one step, in front of the other. But I'd say I was someone who I always grew up. My parents were both sort of civil servants and worked in education and in advocacy themselves. And I grew up very aware that the world isn't fair, life isn't fair, and that we're sort of incumbent on us to do what we can to make life a little bit fairer for people. And so after in college I studied psychology and government, and I thought I was going to do more like direct service work. But long story short, I through a temp agency, I ended up getting hooked up with a organization doing reproductive health work in sub-Saharan Africa. And it was so inspiring. I loved it. I love travel. I love culture. I love people. It was just fascinating to me. And so, very long story short, I ended up going back to grad school. I got my master's in public policy. I've worked for a number of different organizations working to alleviate global poverty and address global health issues. And I loved it. And with malaria specifically, I had the opportunity to travel to Rwanda a number of years ago, and was so struck by, we were going into homes and villages, meeting with families and meeting and talking with the mothers about their lives, and hearing that, they said before they received malaria prevention tools and education, their kids were getting sick, every week, every month. They were getting sick, which meant they couldn't go to school, or the kids couldn't go to school, they couldn't go to work, etc. But then when they received, bed nets, that was a particular intervention we were learning about, and they said it just made such a tremendous difference. And again, to think about like such a relatively simple, inexpensive tool that had such power, transformative power. So I got really inspired by malaria, to get more involved with it. And now I'm a mom of 3 young kids, and it's just one of those things where I can't imagine, when I put my kids to bed at night, it's a time of relative peace, and comfort and safety. And I think, oh, okay, we made it through the day. I got my kids home. But to imagine, as a parent living in endemic country, particularly in Africa, they have to worry every night about, when they put their children to bed at night, they have to worry about they're being subjected to potentially life-threatening mosquito bite, which is just crazy. So, yeah. So anyway, that's why I got involved, and why I'm still doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell your passion just hearing you speak about it. Yeah, I can't even imagine some of those conversations that you must have had and some of the people that you've met. That's incredibly inspiring. Just because we are a sports podcast, in growing up and in, your college career and since now too, like, have you been involved in athletics? I know we were talking earlier, a soccer fan, but yeah,
Hmm.
how have sports played a role in your character development, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, yeah. Huge. I mean, definitely sports were sort of one of the, main major defining parts of who I was as a kid. I grew up playing a number of sports. I was actually in a dance company for a little while, but soccer was really my main sport. But I also tried like basketball, which I was terrible at. I think I have a record for like fouling out in the shortest amount of time. They called me Scrappy, which maybe is telling of my personality generally. Um, and field hockey, and I did indoor track, which was terrifying. But yeah, soccer was really my main sport. I played through high school on travel teams, and I did Olympic development program and the whole thing. Um, but yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I got recruited for some D3 schools, but not D1. I wasn't that good. And I just decided I didn't want to make that the priority for college. So, but I've, still played club and had a great time. And I played in adult leagues, actually until I shattered my tibia at the knee playing soccer,
Oh,
in my late 20s, I guess. So that kind of put my soccer career a little bit on a pause. But I've coached my son's soccer team for a number of years, and I still like to keep in shape and, athletic in different ways. But
yeah. Are there certain things that you feel like as a player you learned, whether it was the team environment or just about, hustle and practice, that you help shape you to be a more effective executive director today?
yeah, gosh, I mean, it's funny. It's like, it's hard to know what I would have learned without
Mm,
sports, because it's just, so it was so much of my life and my time. Yeah, I think everything from, the teamwork and camaraderie and leadership and, figuring out how to work together as a team and play off each other's strengths and challenges and, work through some of those issues. I think resiliency, coming coming out of losses and kind of being able to rise up and move ahead. And then even like funny things like the importance of staying hydrated, the importance of nutrition, like what you put in your body, the importance of sleep. My parents, I wasn't allowed to go to sleepovers night before games, right? Like things that are kind of life lessons that, I think don't seem like the most important things, but you actually realize like transcend into adulthood as well. So yeah, definitely sports are critical to all sort of leadership and teamwork development.
Yeah, and it's cool now for you to be on the flip side and be the coach and the parent and trying to give, other children, your children, that experience to learn more about themselves and learn how to be in the world in a different way, which is really cool.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. My son is super into soccer and baseball and just was on an all-star baseball team this summer, and it was crazy, and it was a ton of time and effort, and they made it to regionals, and but yeah, it was just such an interesting journey and experience for him to, like, be on some teams where he was the best player and other teams where he was like, middle of the road, it was really good. Yeah, good life lessons for sure.
Well, it's sports is one of those things too that I mean, I'm sure in your travels, have you encountered, yeah, like kids playing soccer on the street or something in a nearby park or something? Like it's one of those universal uniters. Have you
Yeah.
seen that at all in your work or travels?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, whenever I, go anywhere, I think connecting with kids and like going to schools or going to soccer fields, because, most of Africa, like soccer is football is the
Mhm.
sport there, right? Yeah, like you said, it's such a connector. It's like a common denominator and, everything else kind of goes out the window and you're just on the pitch and playing and having fun. And, so yeah. And I think for kids, I mean, what's such a, why it's connected with malaria. It's like, to be healthy, these kids deserve a healthy start to
Mhm.
life. And, to think that many of them can't go to school or can't play sports because of a mosquito bite. It's just sort of
Mhm.
one of those really unjust and silly things. So yeah, it's a great connector though.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking too of, you go anywhere around the world and you find a ball, like most everyone's going to know a way to connect or like, even if language is a barrier, to still have fun and connect. And I feel like when you were talking about the conversations with the mothers, I've got, two nieces and a nephew, and it's like, oh, I immediately think of the kids. It's just like it's a very powerful thing, even though we're not in the same situation. Yes, of course, we all want a safe environment for children to grow up in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting whether it's a life experience or something as easy as sport to just connect people. We can make a difference, and I do think that especially the women's sports world, the fan base is hugely passionate about helping um, nonprofits, helping those in need. And so I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about, yeah, how can people get involved? How can people help with United to Beat Malaria?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to get involved. And what I love about United to Beat Malaria and sort of our work is like we provide, we don't just talk about sort of a tragedy, like a child dying every minute from malaria. That's tragic, right? And it could be debilitating and paralyzing because you're like, well, what could I possibly do about that?
Mm,
But the great thing about our work is we actually provide people pathways to take action and do something, and I feel like more and more people just want to do something. They do
mm,
care, but it's hard to know what to do. So for us, I mean, really the main things are around, helping to support our work. It's super simple to donate. We talk about $10 is approximately, helps to provide 2 or more bed nets to help protect families. And that provides everything from sort of the procurement and some of the work we do around education and following up to make sure they're used properly, et cetera. And it's simple to donate people, but then also people do really fun, fundraisers, whether it's at their school or their sports team or their office, everything from like a 5K to beat malaria, or we've done people do basket contests, shooting goals for malaria, and you can get sponsored, or tag it on to a sports bracket, right? Like during March Madness or whatever else. So there's lots of like easy, fun ways, engaging ways. We actually, there's a group of guys at Notre Dame that do a mullets for malaria every year, which is hysterical. And they raise like $20,000 a year. It's crazy,
Wow.
just from like basically people paying them to grow mullets, and then they, shave them. So, it doesn't have to be serious. It can be fun and engaging, and, raising funds for a good cause. And then we also, well, partnering, like we're always looking for more, corporate and private sector partners. We engage a lot with everyone from, the sports industry to betting, because we talk about a lot of times a safe night's sleep,
Mm.
and many others who are working in the space. And then through advocacy, we really, like I mentioned, the US is the lead donor
Mm.
for malaria programs. Pretty incredible. It's something that makes me actually really proud as an American. I think a lot of Americans don't know that,
Mm.
but we play a tremendously strong and important role when it comes to global health, including the malaria front. And that's literally because we've had a lot of Americans saying, I care about this issue, and talking to their members of Congress to say, this is something I care about. I think this is unjust that, that malaria affects kids so much, and we want the US to do something about it. So anyway, so we provide lots of opportunities for people to advocate with their members of Congress, whether it's at our annual leadership summit. It usually happens in March in Washington, D.C., or virtual or hybrid, or, throughout the year, simple social media activations and things like that. So it's easy, to get involved, and you can kind of check out our website, beatmalaria.org, for all the information about donating, advocating, partnering, etc. So yeah, we'd love for people to get involved.
Absolutely. And we'll put that link in the show notes. And where can folks follow, on social media?
Yeah, we're at so Twitter, I think we're Beat Malaria, at Beat Malaria, and then we are on Facebook as well. We're also on Instagram, but I think it is just at Beat Malaria. And then we just recently launched a TikTok account. So so check that out. But yeah, we're on all the social media and quite active, and love engagement. So please join us there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we will put that in the show notes. We also will be putting a link in our weekly newsletter that we put out for She Plays. So you can check that out
Awesome.
there if you haven't subscribed there. There's a link in the show notes as well. Well, thank you again. Is there anything, coming up in the pipeline for you or for United to Beat Malaria that folks can tune in for or get involved with specifically?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a huge year. We actually have the Global Fund Replenishment is coming up at the end of September, which essentially is like every 3 years, there's a big conference to get donors, endemic countries, private sector to step up and sort of make big commitments that will determine essentially the course, if we continue making progress against malaria, if we stall, or if we reverse back. Of course, COVID-19 had a tremendous impact on malaria programs, as many other global
Mm.
health interventions and programs. So this is a really critical time. And so it is, if people are able to go to our website and advocate, sign a petition, let your member of Congress know that you really care about the US continuing to play a leadership role, and paying its fair share for the Global Fund Replenishment. That would be huge. And otherwise, just, yeah, stay tuned and check us out, on social media, where we're always pushing out actions and information and stories. So yeah, we'd love for people to be involved.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, that is a big event happening end of September. So yeah, please everyone go check it out and do what you can. And just thanks again for coming on. Do you have a couple minutes for some rapid fire questions, just as we
Sure.
traditionally do? Okay. So
Yeah.
these are more sports related. So what is your all-time favorite sports movie?
Ooh. I'd say League of Their Own. League
Perfect.
of Their Own.
You
Yeah.
watched
Because
Amazon
it's
Prime
just,
show?
oh no, well, I'm talking about the original movie. I
Yes,
haven't actually, no,
yes.
I haven't seen it. Yeah. No, I haven't seen that Amazon Prime. Should I watch it?
Oh yeah, the show's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah,
good. Oh,
show's
I
really
don't even
good.
think I am.
But yeah, the movie's classic, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. The movie is a classic for sure.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, just the concept and just educating people about there was a women's league during World War II, but then, to have a movie with Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell, Tom Hanks, pretty incredible. So,
Absolutely. Good one. Good one. All right. If you could be good at any sport, like you could be like elite at it that maybe you've never played before, I'll say, what sport would you like to be really good at?
I would say like water polo or like artistic swimming because I'm not a particularly good swimmer. And so whenever I watch during the Olympics, I'm like
Mm.
blown away. Like I don't know how people are staying afloat for that long and exerting themselves and holding their breath. I mean, and I do love dance and choreography, so the swimming is pretty cool. So yeah, I'll go with that. It's
Great
never gonna happen.
answer.
Maybe next life. Next life.
Great answer. Yeah, it is amazing their athletic ability. That we don't see a lot of it because it's underwater, but it is fascinating. All right, what's your favorite memory, sports memory? So like a game you're watching or that you're playing in, just all time, one of your
Hmm.
all-time favorite moments.
Well, I think a lot about because I graduated high school in 1996, right? So, the US women's soccer team was, in that era was pretty incredible and
Mm.
almost was like on the scene in a new way, in a way that it hadn't been unprecedented way. And we got to go to a few like pre-qualifying games to watch them play. And that was pretty incredible, like in the lead up to both the World Cup and the Olympics. So I just remember that feeling of just of awe. And, I had never seen a professional women's game of anything, hardly. So anyway, I'd say one of those games.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, and last question. I love to ask this of everyone. If you could get free tickets for life for any sporting event, you get them every time it happens. So if it's every year or every 4 years, like the Olympics or the World Cup, what are you getting
Mm.
free tickets for?
Oh. Well, right now, the other day I started looking at online for the Women's World Cup 2023 in New Zealand and
Yep.
Australia.
Yep.
That would be pretty awesome. I've never been to those places and it would just be incredible to be there. So I think that would be like a total dream.
Awesome.
I'll
Yeah.
go with
Very
that.
cool. Very cool. Well,
Can you make that
hopefully,
happen?
oh gosh, if I can, I will, you will be the first one I call to bring it, yeah, to invite you on. That'd be amazing.
All right.
Um, no, that's going to be a great tournament, I think. I'm also hoping to get over there. We'll see. Well, thank you again so much, Margaret, for your time and for what you do. It is truly amazing and making a difference in so many lives. And hopefully we can, all partner in some way with you and what y'all are doing. And just thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Well, it's so nice to meet you and thanks for what you're doing. I mean, just to raise awareness and visibility about, female sports and importance of engagement. It's super exciting to be, where we are
Mm.
in the trajectory. We still have a long way to go, but we have come a long way as well. And it's important to recognize that. And so it's thanks for all that you're doing to kind of help push us along and to raise further awareness and engagement around it. So
I
pretty
appreciate
cool.
that. Thank you so much.